That's how the light gets in. Get your perfect offerings. Forget your perfect offerings. Just ring the bells that still can ring. Just ring the bells that still can ring. There is a crack in everything. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. That's how the light gets in. That's how the light gets in. That's how the light gets in.
Beautiful. Thank you. And thank you, Sunrise, for being out here today, because it is the dawning of the solar era in the United States and for the entire planet. And Sunrise and all of the activist groups who are gathered here today are on the front lines of this revolution. And we are going to be joined by Senator Kirsten Gillibrand and Jeff Merkley, Senator Ron Wyden. We're awaiting Senator Cory Booker to join us. We're going to have, again, speakers from the activist groups who are also going to get up and speak here today, and I will be introducing them in a very brief period of time. So we thank everyone for their powerful work in demanding that as a nation that we act on climate. Biblical, record-breaking floods linked to extreme weather and climate change have devastated the Midwest. Supercharged storms, deadly fires, $400 billion in damages from climate change in just the last 2 years alone. We cannot deny the devastating consequences of climate change. It is the national security, economic, health care, and moral issue of our time. We must act now. Republicans and President Trump may choose to be in denial about the consequences of climate change, but to ordinary people, climate change is not politics. It is life and death. But instead of confronting this generational challenge, Senate Republicans and their leader, Mitch McConnell, have scheduled a sham vote today on the Green New Deal resolution on the floor of the United States Senate. They are calling this vote without hearings, without expert testimony, without any true discussion of the costs of climate inaction and the massive potential for clean energy job creation in our country. And that is because Senator McConnell wants to sabotage the call for climate action. He and his colleagues want to make a mockery of the national debate that we have started with the Green New Deal. And that's because they have no plan to fight climate change, and Republicans have no intention of passing legislation to combat climate change. They have to protect vulnerable Republicans from having to defend their climate science denial. Senate Republicans may not believe climate change is an existential threat to humankind, but they are smart enough to know that the goals of the Green New Deal are an existential threat to big oil, to the Koch brothers, and to all of their fossil fuel buddies who are the corporate polluters of our planet. And the power of the Green New Deal has struck a chord in this country. Americans see how a Green New Deal can transform our economy and democracy to address climate change. 100% clean, renewable, zero emitting energy. Green transportation and climate resilient infrastructure. Solar, wind, all-electric vehicles, and energy efficiency. The Green New Deal will guarantee benefits to our workers and create millions of good jobs. It will protect the frontline and vulnerable communities who have been most affected by fossil fuel pollution. The Green New Deal is about jobs and justice at the same time. What Senator McConnell What Senator McConnell and Senate Republicans fail to understand is that the Green New Deal is not just a resolution, it is a revolution that has begun in this country. It is a revolution happening on our streets with millions of students and young people striking. It is a revolution in blue-collar job creation with more than 350,000 jobs now in the wind and solar sectors in our country. And it will be a revolution at the ballot box as long as Republicans continue to deny climate change. 63% of all Americans think Republicans are out of the mainstream on climate change. And that is because the Republican Party is out of the mainstream. Republicans continue to ignore climate change at their political peril. They will pay a price at the ballot box in 2020. The Republican Party and climate denier-in-chief Donald Trump are on the wrong side of science, on the wrong side of the debate, and on the wrong side of history. Today's vote will not be the end of the debate on the Green New Deal. It is the beginning of the debate on the Green New Deal in this country. Democrats are united today and every day in support of action now on climate. Every single one of us believes climate change is real, that humans are causing it, and that we have to act boldly and immediately. Over the past 6 weeks, we've engaged in more debate about climate change than we have over the past 10 years. That was always part of the goal of the Green New Deal resolution. We cannot and we will not allow this debate to be cut short by Republican political games. We are just getting started because now is the era of the Green New Deal. This revolution cannot and will not be stopped. Thank you all for being here. We have our army that is building across this country, and we have with us incredible leaders on this issue. And first, I would like to recognize our great senator from the state of New York, Kirsten Gillibrand. Welcome, Kirsten.
Thank you. Well, thank you to Senator Markey for his extraordinary leadership, his determination, his unwillingness to take no for an answer. And thank you all for everyone here, for all of you who are raising your voices, speaking out, demanding change, and making this the national issue that it is. We are here together because we know the truth. Climate change is real. It is harming our country. It is taking lives. And the evidence is now irrefutable that if we don't act immediately to stop it, then our land, water, air, lives of our children and of our grandchildren will suffer in ways that we can barely imagine today. There will be no going back. We have a crisis on our hands now. We have to rise to this challenge. But unfortunately, a lot of my Republican colleagues are treating this like a political stunt. They're treating climate change like some kind of game with this show vote they are holding today. Republicans don't really care about taking bold action to pass a Green New Deal. They've refused to put forward any real plan to address climate change in any meaningful way. And they've made attempts to block action on climate change by repealing the Clean Power Plan, opposing the Paris Climate Agreement, and opposing EPA's endangerment finding that greenhouse gas emissions endanger public health and welfare. But now suddenly, they want to vote on the Green New Deal? We will not fall for this stunt, because we know that climate change isn't something that should be treated like a game. Just look at what's happening around the country, all over the world. Look at the extreme weather becoming more and more normal. Look at the flooding in the Midwest. Lives were lost. I was just in Iowa. 4 people had already died. Look at the wildfires across our western states. How many people died in those California fires? Look at the damage and devastation in Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Whole communities leveled, homes still not rebuilt. In New York, we got hit with Superstorm Sandy. That was 5 years ago. We still haven't rebuilt. And for those who lost lives of their loved ones, it's never going to be the same. Congress has to take this crisis seriously. We need to treat climate change like the existential threat that it is. We need to pass a Green New Deal. This should be our nation's moonshot. When John F. Kennedy said, let's put a man on the moon in the next 10 years, not because it's easy, but because it's hard, he didn't know whether he could put a man on the moon. But he knew it was something worth fighting for. He knew it was a goal and ambition that he wanted to take on, one he was unwilling to not, and something that would measure how great we are as a country. This is the same. We don't know if we can get to net zero carbon emissions in 10 years, but we should certainly try. Why not this be a measure of how great we are as a nation? Why not this be a measure of how innovative and entrepreneurial and capable our scientists and engineers are? Why not be the world leader in doing something extraordinary and showing what this country is made of? That's what this opportunity is, to be a measure of our success, to show, just like John F. Kennedy did, that we can win. Today is a moment for us to speak out. This will be the first moment of many. Do not give up. Do not grow weary. Do not give in. And keep raising your voices until Congress listens. Thank you.
Excellent. 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 And now, an incredibly great climate champion from the state of Oregon, Jeff Merkley.
So what do we want? Green New Deal. And when do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Green New Deal.
And when do we want it?
Now.
In fact, we wanted it yesterday. We wanted it 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when we knew the damage was coming. And now the damage is here. From the vast fires eating up the forests of the Pacific Northwest, to the hurricanes pounding the southeast, to the ticks and Lyme disease in the northeast, to the floods and drought that are assaulting the heartland of America. We know it's here, and that's the first principle of the Green New Deal. We have a calamity facing right now, isn't that right?
Yes.
Second principle, we must surge in every way possible to take on this challenge. Not just people from the city, but people from rural America. Not people from just the East Coast, but from the West Coast. Not just from the coast, but from the heartland. That we will all work together to take this on in a dramatic, powerful way over this next 10 years. Isn't that right?
Yes.
And that in the process, we're going to create millions of good-paying jobs because we can build the middle class of America while we're taking on climate. Isn't that right?
Yes.
And when we create those jobs, we're going to make sure that communities that have left behind before are not left behind in this effort. And that means rural America. That means communities that have had their economic vitality from fossil fuels. That means communities that are the front line in our urban areas. Isn't it right we're going to leave no one behind?
Yes.
So now is the time. Action is urgent. Let's get it done. Thank you all. Thank you, Sunrise Movement.
Incredible. And now the lead Democrat on the Senate Finance Committee, the person who will be in the driver's seat to ensure that wind tax breaks, solar tax breaks, all of these tax breaks for our technologies are protected. Great senator from the state of Oregon, Ron Wyden.
Thank you, Senator Markey. And now you know you have 100% of Oregon's United States senators standing with you. Here's what this is all about, folks. We believe that climate change is a real problem that deserves urgency. Mitch McConnell doesn't believe it's a problem at all. So that's what this debate is all about. And political change in America is bottom up, not top down. So we're here with you to make sure that we get that message to the grassroots. And I'm telling you, they are really hungry to hear it. Senator Markey just made the point about the Finance Committee. Let me tell you what I heard last week in rural Oregon. And I was in places where Donald Trump won the election by 20 or 30 percentage points. And I got up and said, you know, back there in D.C., I'm the senior Democrat on taxes. There are more than 40 separate tax breaks, and most of them in energy are for dirty energy tax relics for yesteryear. 40 tax breaks for dirty energy. Folks, let me promise you today, as part of our effort, I'm going to try to throw those dirty energy tax breaks in the garbage can. And here's what we're going to do instead. Instead of 40 tax breaks for dirty energy, we'll have just a handful. One for clean energy, one for clean transportation fuel, and one for energy efficiency. And then, like I did in these rural communities, I'm going to go to conservatives and I'm going to say, how about if we work for more green energy that costs us less green from our wallet? We can win this fight, folks. But what we're going to have to do, and it's why it's so wonderful that all of you are here and this incredible grassroots juggernaut is building, is show in this debate that Senator Markey will lead on the floor of the United States Senate today, is show that we are building this groundswell. So I've got a pretty busy day, but I'm blocking off a whole chunk of time to stand with Senator Markey, to stand with all of you, to talk about what I heard in those rural Oregon communities. We're going to win this fight. It's important for our climate. It's important for our health. In Oregon, we're talking about making sure that our rivers are protected, that our mountains are there for recreation. I want you to know, as a senior Democrat on the committee that writes the tax laws, I will show up every single day to work for a world that's about the values that are our priority today. Thanks, everybody.
Wow, beautiful. Excellent. Wow, Marty, that was fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you, Ron. Now, and we're going to be waiting on the other senators to arrive, but let me now go to our activists and begin by having Varshini Prakash come back out here again, the leader of the Sunrise Movement. Please come on back out here, Varshini.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. And thank you to all of you who are here today. So Mitch McConnell bet big that today's vote would fracture the Democratic caucus. And Mitch McConnell bet big that people around the nation don't care about climate justice, about clean air and clean water and the creation of millions of good jobs. He bet big that the might of movements, of courageous advocates, and bold political leaders could not withstand his political games. Today, he bet wrong and he will lose big. His miscalculation has led to his greatest fears coming true. In the last 4 months, we have transformed the debate on climate change at a national level. We have moved the Green New Deal from being a niche policy agenda to becoming the litmus test for every candidate in our politics through 2020. We have made it the #1 most popular policy amongst Democratic caucus goers in Iowa. And I want to quickly shout out Virginia Meyer, who is here from Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement, who is organizing rural communities and people all across Iowa to ensure that the Green New Deal remains at the top of our national debate. We've made the willful denial of climate science by many of the GOP elite for the sake of protecting profits for their oil and gas donors an untenable position. We have used this moment to begin to build the winning coalition of farmers and ranchers, indigenous communities, communities of color, businesses, youth, and labor, and more that will need to pass these policies in years to come. And we've brought thousands out to our politicians' doorsteps, galvanized an entire base of young people who are angry that our politicians have failed us time and again when our very lives are on the line. So whether Mitch McConnell likes it or not, change is coming. Our army of thousands will grow to millions to realize a world where all can be free from the chains of pollution, the grips of unnatural disasters, and the crush of economic insecurity. Our fight will live on. In 3 weeks, we launched the Green New Deal tour to bring the message about the Green New Deal to every corner of the country, from Iowa to Kentucky, Louisiana to California, Texas to Michigan, and yes, Washington, D.C. We're bringing the Green New Deal to red states, blue states, and purple states, every color under the sun, to share in this conversation about a Green New Deal. And this summer, we are planning the largest popular demonstration at a political debate in our nation's history to change the debate and ensure that climate action rooted in justice and equity remains a top issue in our nation's politics. So thank you. And be here for the Green New Deal tour featuring many of these folks here on May 13th. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from Tayloe from We Act for Environmental Justice. Welcome.
Tell me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Tell me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Tayloe, and I'm the Director of Federal Legislative Affairs for We Act for Environmental Justice. We Act was founded in Harlem, New York 31 years ago to build healthy communities by organizing residents of color and low-income people to engage in the creation of sound and fair environmental health and protection policies and practices. We Act provides leadership within the national environmental justice movement and works to influence the creation of federal, state, and local policies affecting the environment and public health. We Act's Washington, D.C. office also coordinates the Environmental Justice Leadership Forum, which has 43 members in 21 states. While some choose to debate facts and create delays that only benefits corporations that pollutes our air, water, and soil, I stand here today to say unequivocally that climate change is real and that there can be no climate justice without environmental justice. Report after reports have confirmed what environmental justice communities have been saying for decades, that Black and Hispanic communities are exposed to more pollution than their white counterparts. We must draft legislation and implement policies to protect not just the rich, but everyone. We must act now to protect communities like those in Houston, who are underneath black plumes and fires as their air is being poisoned by toxic chemicals. We must act now for the people of Flint, who have not had clean drinking water in nearly 1,800 days, and the countless cities in our country without clean water due to our failure to update our old infrastructure. We must act now to provide a just transition for our brothers and sisters in Appalachia, who've sacrificed their bodies to power our country, working in coal mines. We acknowledge all of the senators who stand here with us today in opposition to what history will say was a sham vote to distract us from true progress to not only protect our planet, but the lives of those who have a human right to clean air, clean water, and a safe environment. We acknowledge Senator Markey and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for their leadership in shifting the policies of how climate policy is shaped at the federal level. Their recognition of the importance of the role of those working on the front line of environmental and climate justice in drafting the Green New Deal is to be supported and applauded. We are encouraged to see frontline and vulnerable communities and indigenous peoples reflected in the aspirations of the resolution. We Act has forged our very own Green New Deal on the ground in Harlem and El Barrio with our Solar Uptown Now campaign, which puts 270 kilowatts of renewable energy on the roofs of affordable housing buildings in our communities and contributed to employment, lower energy bills, and reduced greenhouse gas emissions. Solar Uptown Now demonstrates that a Green New Deal can provide a just transition to renewable energy that combats climate change, reduces pollution, lowers energy costs, and supports a green economy. We must also acknowledge that while the Green New Deal is a positive step forward, there will be challenges in how the sausage gets made. We look forward to working with everyone here to draft and pass legislation that has a clear timeline for ending our dependence on fossil fuels, which disproportionately pollutes the air, water, and soil where frontline, vulnerable, and indigenous people live, work, and play. In addition, we encourage members to avoid technological carbon sequestration methods that are unproven at the scale of the problem. The time is now to act. We must act now because tell me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Tell me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Thank you very much.
Beautiful. And now we're going to hear from Liz Perera from the Sierra Club. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Kerene, and thank you to our allies at the Sunrise Movement and many of our allies who are here today. We are working at Sierra Club for climate, jobs, and justice, and that's what this is about. And let's be clear, today's vote is nothing more than a political stunt by fossil fuel-funded Mitch McConnell and Senate Republicans. Fossil fuels are in charge of the Senate right now, and that is what's going on. American communities aren't facing the destruction caused by climate change in 10 years or 20 years. They're facing it today. In the past few years, we've seen multiple historic floods and storms and record wildfires and drought, while Donald Trump and Washington Republicans have sought to roll back clean air and water climate standards, failing to ever even consider the threat of climate change. And I want to say, my father grew up in Underwood, Iowa, a little tiny town in western Iowa, and I think we have an Iowa theme going on here today. Yes, thank you to the Iowan who's here today working on jobs. You know, that the flood that hit Nebraska and Iowa is an absolute shame. Why isn't Jody Ernst and other Republicans talking about this? This is absolutely an impact of climate change. These are small towns where my father grew up. Ranchers, farmers who have nothing, and their livelihoods have been taken away from them. This is absolutely unfair. These are the people that Jody Ernst actually represents, people that need to be represented and need a voice in the Senate. And you know, Senate Republicans, they've shown their cards. Their only plan on climate is to confirm a coal lobbyist at the head of the EPA, and they are trying to usher through oil and gas lobbyists to head the Department of the Interior. This is not a plan. This is just another attack on clean air, water, and climate. Senate Democrats are not going to stoop to the Republicans playing toxic political games while families and communities across the country are paying for the price for climate inaction. Ringleader McConnell and his Senate Republican puppets are treating the Senate like their own personal sideshow, a circus, and it has to end now. American families are suffering, and we deserve better. As Washington Republicans and the Trump administration try to dismantle protections for workers, for frontline communities, and our environment, a movement is growing to tackle the twin crises of inequality and climate change and bring about jobs and justice. And it is here today. Thank you very much.
Beautiful. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And we thank all of the activists across the country who are mobilizing for a 10-year campaign to transform this economy into a clean energy, non-greenhouse gas emitting economy. That is what this mission is all about. The United Nations, at the end of last year, said that climate change is now an existential threat to our planet. Well, the Green New Deal is an existential threat to the business model of the Koch brothers and ExxonMobil and all of those polluting companies, and it is not going to go away. So, this is the battle of our time. It is the #1 issue that we have to deal with on an intergenerational basis. We have to have a partnership of all generations ready to fight this polluting control of that golden dome that we have as our capital. So that is our job. It is to make sure that we transform this economy, and the battle begins on the floor of the United States Senate this afternoon, and it's not going to end until Election Day in 2020. So we thank all of you for being here, and now if any of you have any questions, we'd be glad to take them.
Behind you. I have a few words to say. I came from Iowa to speak today.
Okay, yes, so what is your name?
My name is Ginny Meyer.
Ginny Meyer from Iowa. Welcome, Ginny.
Hello, Washington, D.C. Hi. I'm really happy to be here in such distinguished company and thank the Sunrise Movement for bringing me here. I came from Iowa yesterday. I live in Lone Tree, Iowa. I have a 10-acre spread there, that I grow my own fruits and vegetables for my family, my friends, and the local food bank. I also am a member of Iowa CCI, which is Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement. We're an activist group that's been working for more than 40 years for justice, especially environmental justice. All right. I want to tell you a few things about agriculture in Iowa, because we are the people that feed everyone else. And it is the lifeblood of our economy in our state. It is the foundation of our social structure. We have a bountiful land that has served us well for many generations. But industrial farming, as it is practiced today, is not sustainable.
Come on, tell it.
We need a new approach. We need a new incentive structure. We need the small minority of our progressive farmers who are really good stewards of the soil to become the rule and not the exception.
That's right.
We need policies that put people and planet first. We need a Green New Deal. I want to tell you that Iowa, like many places, has a huge water problem caused by industrial farming. We have 23.6 million hogs and 69 million hens, and we only have about 3 million people.
Come on now.
Yeah. These animals are kept in confined, concentrated animal feeding operations. We call them factory farms. We have 13,000 factory farms in Iowa, and we have about 400 new ones coming online every year. And we have little or no local control. I have one about a mile from my house. And believe me, if you visit me, we'll smell it. 92% of the land in my state of Iowa is farmed, but only 6% of working Iowans are farmers. Something's wrong with this equation. The industry and industrial farming is emptying our rural landscape. It's hollowing out our small towns. It's causing consolidation of our schools, and it is causing loss of local services all over rural areas. We have employers who can't find workers. We don't have enough people. we need to repopulate the land with better farm policies. The historic flooding that many people have referenced here today in the Missouri River Valley and the Mississippi and many smaller rivers in Iowa is terrible. And in the Missouri River Valley, one of the problems is our farmers, who basically grow 2 monocrops, corn and soybeans, which are commodity crops, they stored their crops this year. They stored them wherever they could, every bin, some even piled on the ground, because commodity prices were too low for them to sell it. Also, Trump's disastrous trade war and tariffs, they took away the main markets for their crops, so there's no place to sell it. Well, now, in many places, these stored grain surpluses are underwater. They're ruined. Spring planting can't take place this year, too wet. And the Missouri River came rushing down so fast that it scoured the topsoil off of the river bottoms and left in sand in its place. All right, I have more to say, mostly about my favorite senator, Joni Ernst, and what she doesn't do, but I'll give the...
Okay, beautiful. Thank you so much. There it is. And the one thing we can't forget is that in Iowa today, 40% of all electricity is generated by wind power. So we know that this revolution is happening, and it's creating tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of jobs across this country, and it is just the beginning, because the Green New Deal is going to supercharge this revolution, creating millions of jobs in the clean energy sector that is going to save all of creation by engaging in massive job creation. So we thank all of you for being here today. And now, on to the Senate floor in this battle.
You're not going without labor. You're not going without labor.
Okay, good.
You're not going without the working people of these United States. My name is Judith Howell. As a night shift security officer, my duties include keeping million-dollar properties safe. In my 16 years, I have seen firsthand the damage that can occur from wear and tear, lack of surveillance, improper waste or chemical storage, waste management or chemical storage, fire and water leaks. Each building is a mini environment with a plethora of issues that can waste money, affect profits, hurt tenant employees and their business operations. I am a proud member of Local 32B of the Service Employees International Union, SEIU. My local has nearly 170,000 members. My union has 8 million members worldwide. We are the foot soldiers in this struggle. And we ask our union brothers and sisters in unions across this country and the world to join us for a Green New Deal. We support the Green New Deal. Will today's children and their children be left a world where they can survive and thrive? We need to answer that question. The fight for climate justice is critically important to my union. We believe that working people can and must be a part of the process of reversing climate change. Climate advocacy is not new for us. 32BJ is a part of the people's climate movement, and we are currently working with allies and property owners to pass green building legislation in New York City. We are a longtime member of the Blue-Green Alliance, and my union has an award-winning green building superintendent's training program. My union understands without the ambitious goal of the Green New Deal, the political will won't exist to force corporations to change their behavior. Listen, fossil fuel will no more change by itself than the cigarette and tobacco products company would admit that they were causing cancer. oil, big coal, gas frackers, and their lobbyists scare their workers into believing that change will ruin their livelihoods and take their jobs. Nothing could be further from the truth. The Green New Deal, the clean energy harvesting and manufacturing jobs will more than replace any of the polluting ones that are lost. Our future, our planet's future energy sources must be clean: solar, water, wind, steam, and responsible nuclear. The greedy never care about the need. The greedy never care about the needy. And McConnell, the truth be told, he's calling for a vote on a resolution that we know he has no intention of passing. He doesn't care that communities who have done the least to cause climate change, the working poor, people of color, displaced immigrants, are disproportionately hurt the most, because it is in fact the poor and the sick, many sickened by the pollutants that contribute to climate change, who are the least equipped to deal with the bad air, increased heat waves, and rising sea levels. But no matter what happens around this vote today, it just helps us to identify the enemies of our health, our families' health, our communities' health, and the health of the planet. As we look toward 2020, when we, the people, vote, we must remember what the scientist and Silent Spring author Rachel Carson told us. Quote, "We are challenged as humankind has never been challenged before, to prove our maturity and our mastery, not of nature, but of ourselves." That's why I, Judith Howell, on behalf of my union, 32BJ SEIU, joins the growing call on Congress to vote its conscience. If you don't have a conscience, get a conscience. And vote the overwhelming scientific evidence to pass this resolution quickly. We must act now. We cannot wait.
So, beautiful, beautiful. So, we know that the extreme weather and natural disasters are fueled by climate change. We know that the Republicans are backed by big oil and the polluters, and we know that we need action now. The fight begins on the floor of the Senate right now. Thank you all, and we must keep our energy level high. This is the time. This is the place. You are the people who are going to lead this revolution. Thank you all so much for being here.
You guys learned it already. We're going to do it 2 times. It's the words on my shirt. Good jobs, livable future, Green New Deal. You ready for it? Yeah. What do we want? Good jobs.
Thank you for being here.
Now. What do we want? Livable future. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? A Green New Deal. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Good jobs. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? A livable future. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? A Green New Deal. When do we want it? Now. Thank you.
I was pushing it out. I was in a meeting this morning at the online.